we're not going to have other people carrying your burdens for you, any more than the fact that right now everybody in America just about has to get auto insurance. Nobody considers that a tax increase.
Okay, two quick things. We're not going to, we're saying that they shouldn't have to burden it for you. And then they also said that all insurance companies had to accept people with pre-existing conditions. So that's exactly what happened. So the government shutdown. Hey, did you guys know this? It's like ending, kind of. Did you wonder, hey, what was the point of all of this? And we want to get into specifically Obamacare, right? We've talked about this. This was largely about health care, benefits, subsidies, also extending to illegal aliens. But Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, let me know, comment if you guys were, I know many of you were too young to be around for that. That was a big, it was a central fight. And the results are in, and they're bad. And people were telling you back then that it would be bad. And I don't know if you remember this, but people back then saying this is going to be a disaster for the United States, they were silenced with, you're racist. So there's nothing new under the sun. After the latest Senate vote, looks like the shutdown, though, is nearing its end.
After 41 days, the longest government shutdown in U.S. history may soon be over. The Senate passing a bipartisan bill to reopen the government. It'll go to the House later this week, and if it passes, things could be back up and running soon.
The longest government shutdown in U.S. history may finally be coming to an end.
The bill as amended is passed.
The Senate passing a bipartisan bill tonight to reopen the government after 8 senators who caucus with Democrats broke with their party Sunday night to support a short-term funding bill that would reopen the government through January 30th.
And for those of you wondering, yes, the anchor at the beginning of that clip, it is the guy from this.
Texas rat snakes are going to be one of the largest snakes that you find in the Metroplex area.
God love him. I still love him. Some kind of a lizard? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it's just a lizard. Maybe a gecko. It's like a little anole.
Maybe not freak out like that. That's not a snake.
He's an icon. He's been around for a long time, and he's still there, and we appreciate it.
He loves his job.
So the deal right now, it includes government funding through January. It includes program-specific funding for things like SNAP. And then, of course, the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. You read it as ACA on social media. Those subsidies, well, the vote for that is going to be held in December. As we know it right now, things obviously are subject to change. And of course, with the government potentially reopening, the left melted down as you would expect.
Look, don't let them spin you. The Democrats caved. Just a promise to pick it up and maybe vote on it in December.
I want an opposition party. I think the Democrats caved. I think the Democrats let down the American people. Shame on the Democrats.
Who tried to run game on a nigga.
For even believing that the Republicans will, even vote on it. I think Chuck Schumer, his days are over.
I can't f***ing believe it. They f***ing caved on the shutdown.
Tonight, 8 Democrats voted with the Republicans to allow them to go forward on this continuing resolution. And to my mind, this was a very, very bad vote.
Well, there you have it. Democrats just caved and bent the knee to Donald Trump and the Republicans. The government has been shut down for 40 days, but Democrats just allowed them to do it. We allowed them. We bent the knee, we caved. It is pathetic.
This was such a big cave by the Democrats, Bruce Wayne offered to buy it.
Did the Democrats cave, at least 8 of them, voting to invoke cloture, to eventually move on to vote to reopen government? In short, I think the answer is for sure yes. The long-term gain, which is being able to ensure those ACA subsidies, would have been worth it. But instead, it looks like the pain got too great, and they're going to get promised a vote, assuming that Republicans actually follow through on their promise this time. So I think they did cave. I think the Democratic base has a right to be upset here.
You mean your colleagues?
Yes.
Mr. I was a Republican.
Yes.
But by the way, I'll extend that invitation. Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Kinzinger.
Don't.
Come on.
Don't.
Yes. Come on.
I hate that man.
It's not right to hate.
I know, but this is righteous anger, my friend. Okay, I have made a choice.
I'll tell you why I hate this next. This is a post on X because the left, just like this is why I told you back today, you're racist if you don't support Obamacare. This is Don Winslow blaming the defecting Democrats, not just for caving, but for being specifically white. He wrote this. He wrote, Yeah, and yes, by the way, he wrote them as separate lines, just so you know. That's why I'll be spacing this out, listening on audio. He wrote, 8 white old senators, not one person of color among them, lied and effed over IMO, the American people. Millions and millions will lose their health care because of these old 8 white people. This isn't just a bad decision. These are really bad people. Learn their names. Okay. All right. So it's got to. So I guess this assumes that black people are more likely to be on subsidized health care.
Maybe.
Oh, okay. All right. So there's nothing new. Before it was LGBTQ phobic, transphobic. It's racism. It's sexism. It's just all so tiresome. So let's look at what the shutdown was specifically about. Obamacare subsidies. Right. The left, they were demanding that these subsidies be extended. Okay, and the Trump budget, the bill, big beautiful bill, would basically allow the subsidies to expire at the end of this year. And bring up the premium increase here. Yeah, you guys can see that the increase just this year would be, like, with subsidies, it would be 26%. Without subsidies, it would go up 114%. Wow. That's what we're looking at.
Wow.
Over double. Jeez.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Obamacare was BS from the start. It was a Trojan horse. Everyone back then who was still, the people who are still here, but there were people fighting back then. Some of us are still around. We were blowing the whistle, telling you what was about to come. And back then we were also accused of being racist. So it's time for a little bit of then and now. All right, let's start with then. And we're going to continue here on Rumble Premium. For those who are not members, click right there. Click that button. We are funded by viewers like you. That's how we are able to not only do the Change My Minds, the investigative journalism, but it's the way we're able to do this show. It's 100% more show each day, and you get the Friday show along with everything ad-free. Join Rumble Premium, or all of this goes away, in which case we accept our fate. Then, Democrats promised you a lot with Obamacare. But first off, because Americans were concerned, because we had medical freedom in this country, they said, hey, if you just don't believe the racist fear-mongering. If you like your doctor, if you like your plan, nothing's going to change. You can keep it. That was the promise.
If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan.
Nope.
Period.
That's the worst.
If you like what you have, you can keep it. That's critically important. The person has a plan, he or she likes it, he or she can keep it.
If you got a doctor now, you got a medical professional you want, you get to keep that. If you have an insurance program or a health care policy you want, the idea is to make sure you keep it.
If you like your insurance and your doctors, you keep them.
If you like what you have, when our legislation is passed and signed by our president, you will be able to keep it.
Well, that brings us to now. We've had enough time. Absolutely not. That's not correct. And when the left says, hey, if you like this, hey, we're not going to affect you, what they mean is as long as everything on the periphery of this issue aligns with everything that we want and demand in our stipulations, then that's fine. Hey, if you want to run your business how you want, that's fine. Except you'll bake gay wedding cakes and you'll cater as a pizzeria to gay weddings. And well, no, we mean as long as you step in line, which is the same, which can be said for all regimes. So the Affordable Care Act, it forced insurance companies to change their coverage in a lot of ways. And a lot of the new Obamacare compliant plans meant that people couldn't keep their old doctor. Not only that, but a lot of doctors just started checking out. Some doctors decided to go to cash-only practices because they didn't want to deal with the red tape. Not to mention more and more doctors stopped taking, as a result, like Medicare, Medicaid overall. Plenty of people, as a result, lost their doctors.
Yeah, and when you have to switch plans, a lot of times you might go into another network, which means
exactly
you lose
right.
your doctor.
Yeah.
Like, it's very easy to see why people were afraid of this. And the plans were the worst lie, because the plans almost all went away because they were no longer affordable. They had to change everything about them, and people had to move on to something else because all of a sudden that didn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and I want to take you back in time a little bit for people who may not know, or you may not have been sort of in the healthcare plan market back then. Yeah. Costs were expensive. Mm-hmm. And any industry where you look and you see costs spiraling out of control in a way that doesn't reflect the marketplace anywhere else, you invariably see a marketplace with a lot of government regulation, subsidies, bureaucracy. You can say it about insurance companies, of course. You can say it about pharmaceutical companies, yes. You can say it about airlines. You can definitely say it about education. You can say it about automobiles. Right? So you look at these industries where you go, gosh, the costs of course, housing, the costs have skyrocketed in a way that wouldn't be comparable to, say, any other goods or service, from milk to televisions. So in the same period of time where healthcare costs have more than doubled for the average American, the cost of a 50-inch TV has been cut in half. Now, I'm certainly not saying that these are of equal importance in your life. What I'm saying is that reflects a marketplace where the consumer and the provider dictate the price, supply and demand. That doesn't factor into the equation when the government says, oh, and by the way, we're going to change this entire industry. So costs were high. But for context, they weren't doubling in a decade. So people wanted to deal with it. Now, the solution from the right, or some of these solutions, to give you an idea, what it included was tort reform, because there was a lot of, there was a huge burden of cost associated with ambulance chasers.
Yeah, and the insurance doctors would have to carry because of that. So.
Yeah, that was a big deal. A heavy emphasis on HSA, so you could actually, for example, have catastrophic plans where you could pay cash, so you could have a direct relationship with your doctor, and then have more incentives, tax breaks for HSAs, where you could have catastrophic insurance care, meaning for things like major surgeries, right? And the reason that that was proposed is because when we looked at the number of uninsured Americans, a lot of them were under the age of 30, 25, and chose not to purchase health care plans because they thought that they didn't need it. And then the other thing that was really big was opening up insurance across state lines. So for example, back then, if the cheapest plan, and now this is going to sound crazy, but if the cheapest plan was $250 a month in California, and in Texas it was $170 a month, well, you had to pay $250 a month in California. If you just opened up insurance across state lines, the cheapest plan that was available anywhere in the country now would become the cheapest plan available to you. It was opposed by the left. And I always try and look at it from their perspective. I can't think of any reasoning other than, well, we want eventually socialized healthcare, and it's a big kickback to insurance companies who, by the way, also give a ton of money lobbying to the left.
They loved this.
Yeah.
I was very surprised at the time, and I'll tell this very quickly. I had a $90 a month plan with Blue Cross. I had a $3,000. That was my catastrophic deductible that I had to have, and I had a fully funded HSA account. I was very responsible with how I handled this, and it wasn't onerous. Like, I put about $1,500 a year, and I didn't have a lot of money at all, into my HSA account. I had $140,000 back surgery during that time.
Yep.
Zero money came out of my bank account.
Right.
Because I had $3,000 in my HSA, so I just transferred that to cover my out-of-pocket costs, and the rest of it was covered.
Yeah.
That was gone. Within a year or two, that plan was 2 or 3 times the price, and the deductible went from $3,000 to $6,000.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, overnight. And I was 30 years old. I'm not like some 21-year-old kid, that insurance. I was 30 years old, I think 32 by the time I got out of that plan. That was working.
Yeah. Everyone was sounding the alarm back then. We were sort of at an impasse. Okay, do we want to go to universal health care, which, by the way, it hadn't completely collapsed the way that it is in places like Canada, in places like the UK. It was bad. Yeah. The quality of care was worse than the United States, but it hadn't collapsed on itself financially the way that it has now. But we were going, okay, we can either go back to placing the power in the direct relationship of the patient and the doctor, or insurance companies. And the left, in trying to migrate to universal health care, what they now would say is Medicare for all, they said, no, let's transition by giving a lot more power to insurance companies and forcing people onto these plans, making it impossible to really just go to a family doctor. Now, the super wealthy do have that today. They're called concierge doctors, where you pay a monthly fee, but you don't. You have to line up with the entire gaggle of people who have their skyrocketing premiums and deductibles. So let's go back to then. Promise that was made from Barack Obama, the worst president of my lifetime, bar none, not even close. He said that the individual mandate, and for those of you who are new, it's a tax. That's what it was. It was basically if you didn't buy health insurance, many Americans chose not to buy health insurance. Some couldn't afford it, but many chose not to. It was a tax. It was a punishment. But he said, no, this is a mandate. It's not a tax. But if you don't buy health insurance, you're going to have to pay this mandate to the government as a penalty. But it's not a tax.
You were against the individual mandate during the campaign. Under this mandate, the government is forcing people to spend money, fining you if you don't.
That's not true, George. For us to say that you've got to take a responsibility to get health insurance is absolutely not a tax increase. What it's saying is that we're not going to have other people carrying your burdens for you. any more than the fact that right now everybody in America just about has to get auto insurance. Nobody considers that a tax increase.
Okay, two quick things. We're not going to, we're saying that they shouldn't have to burden it for you. And then they also said that all insurance companies had to accept people with pre-existing conditions. So that's exactly what happened. If you were a fit young American who took great care in your health, well, you were paying for people with diabetes who were massively overweight, smokers, all of that, because insurance companies could no longer deny pre-existing conditions. The other thing is they used to make this comparison to auto insurance. And back then, people like us were saying, well, that's not valid because you don't have to drive. You could just, you're not penalized if you don't get car insurance if you don't drive. For example, many people in New York, some people, they carpool. To live in this country, period, if you are working, you would have to pay this tax, period, because everyone needed to pay into healthcare. It's not like you could opt out. There were religious exemptions, and that created a whole cottage industry. But if you don't purchase car insurance, you just don't drive. In the United States, if you say, well, I'm not purchasing health insurance, you're going to pay. And by the way, that brings us to now. The Supreme Court ruled that it absolutely was a tax, and President Trump gutted the tax to $0 in 2019. It would be like Donald Trump putting in a tariff saying, it's not a tariff, it's a coin collection. You're like, well, who's going to pay it? Only other countries if they want to do business here. Well, that sounds like a tariff. It's a collection.
I want to say they went back and forth on that. I remember them arguing in the Supreme Court the exact opposite of what they campaign on this thing being. But let me just go back to the auto insurance thing. It's very instructive. Auto insurance, a lot of people think that the only reason that you have to have insurance is if you do damage to somebody else's car. And that's certainly part of it. But a lot of times you also have a loan on that car.
Right.
That needs to be paid off.
Right.
Right? It's like having a mortgage and having insurance on your house. You cannot have a house without insurance because the bank is like, if this house burns, I need to be paid. The car insurance companies benefited.
Right.
Right? Massively from this. And it protected people that were making the loans. Okay, fine. And if I hurt somebody else, it protected them. Fantastic. How is that in any way the same as insurance? Well, it makes sure that the insurance companies are protected. And all these financial institutions that are providing you these services, they get their money too. It's
and really by the way, no cap. This is what you need to know. So let's add this all up. All right. What was the number? Was it 20-something million Americans who were uninsured or underinsured?
I thought that was 50 when he did this.
That's right.
The whole
That's right. It was 50. I think it was 50 million, but then we found that like close to 30 million were people who chose not to purchase a lot of these lofty sort of health insurance plans. Okay. So, all right, we're going to force everyone now. We're going to force everyone to buy insurance. This is what happened. We're going to force everybody to buy insurance. And to make sure that you buy insurance, we're going to tax you if you don't buy insurance. So you might as well buy insurance. Okay? So everyone has to buy insurance. Oh, by the way, health insurance companies, one of the terms is you can no longer deny for pre-existing conditions, and there's no cap, so raise the cost however you see fit. You now have tens of millions of new people paying into your system. You can charge them whatever you want, and you have to accept the shrieking, loud, smoking, chronically ill, obese, mentally defective feminists. Enjoy. What do you think the insurance companies did? Well, that brings us back to then. And people believe this. People believed this back then. And the same people out there right now saying Medicare for all, these are the people who told you all of these lies. Please check the references. They said that Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, would, of course, lower healthcare costs for everyone.
For the average American, it will mean lower costs, more options, and coverage you can count on. It will save you and your family money if we have a more efficient healthcare system.
So that's the one, right? That's the silver tuna. Okay. Even if all of this was morally wrong and an infringement of your freedom, you still have plenty of Americans who say, well, it still did lower costs, so it was a net good. That brings us to now. Healthcare costs have spiraled out of control every year since Obamacare in a way that they had not in the past. Not even close, not even comparable. So from 2010 to 2024, insurance premiums doubled. They effectively doubled.
Jeez.
So the whole reason for this, right, they said was to bring down healthcare costs and to get more Americans insured. Well, you could argue that there are far more Americans now who are underinsured because the plans are just awful. There are plans that existed when we were younger. If you're watching, and guys in chat, we'll take some of your chat, that it's just not even a thing anymore.
Yeah.
It's not even the same type we call it health insurance. These are totally different plans. It's different coverage, and it's worse than ever. And by the way, here's a doctor explaining there are quite a few hidden problems here too, beyond just the general premise. Okay, everyone has to buy insurance. All right, we're going to penalize people if they don't buy insurance. You can't deny for pre-existing conditions. No cap. Insurance companies, go nuts. But beyond that, there are some other ways that costs increased. Here's actually a doctor, I believe a doctor, discussing this vertical integration and effectively these insurance companies creating monopolies where they could fleece you for more. So this is one of the unforeseen consequences of Obamacare, except everyone kind of saw it coming.
Why do our health insurance costs go up every year? Can we get 1 year where it's steady or God forbid they go down? And the reason for that is it was designed that way. There's something called in the Affordable Care Act called the medical loss ratio. The medical loss ratio means that insurance companies must spend between 80 to 85% of all premium dollars on medical services. That means they're limited to 15 to 20% for administrative overhead and profit. So that means that they play a little game. The higher the top line is, the bigger that number is. So now all we did was say, let's charge more each year. If you look each year, the insurance companies' revenues go up every year. The second thing they did to get around that was they started vertically integrating. What's vertical integration? That's when you start buying companies that are not insurance companies, but in similar businesses. So they started buying pharmacy benefit managers, which are middlemen for the drug companies. They started buying pharmacies. They started buying physician services and physician groups. So why is that important? Well, think about this. I'm the insurance company. I want to make it look on paper like I'm making my medical loss ratio, because if I don't, I'm going to have to pay a rebate. So what I do is I have my physician over here who's owned, and I overpay him, but he's owned. So when I overpay him, all I'm doing is I'm showing I have an expense here, but it goes back in my other pocket. Same thing for drugs. I can take a $50 drug, I can pay $200 for it. Now I've just gotten around the medical loss ratio because somehow the government can't figure out how to trace that dollar beyond the insurance.
And this is important. I've talked about this with COVID. Don't just listen to people like Fauci or Birx or whoever it is saying, well, this is the science we had available to us. No. Right. There are people sounding the alarm. You banned them. Same thing can be said about the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Yep. No. There were plenty of people fighting back, warning against exactly what is happening now. You called them racist.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Massive fights going on over this.
You're just opposing him because he's black.
The Nebraska senator, I think, whoever they had to buy off to get this thing through. And look, how could we have possibly seen that throwing more people, creating more demand in an industry would have made the prices go up? Does it sound like everything we've been seeing with illegals here increasing housing costs, more people getting free college education, increased college tuition for everybody, throwing more people into the medical establishment and increasing the need for medical services, and the price just continues to go up? And you know who paid for it? All of us.
Yeah.
It's not just increased premiums, it's increased out-of-pocket expenses, because all those services that should have been $50 that the insurance company is now charging $200 for to get that loophole benefit they're talking about, it didn't go away when it wasn't an owned physician.
Right.
That price became the benchmark for everybody.
And the same people who orchestrated this and lied to you and knew that the cost would go up are the same people who orchestrated the open borders and give or take 20 million illegal aliens in Obama, the sequel, Suck Harder with Biden for 3 years.
Suck harder.
And that's the reason for this shutdown, is we shouldn't be extending any of this to illegal aliens. That's always been their plan, is to purchase votes. And don't just take my word for it. LeVar Burton, this thing. The lack of funding transparency. Here's a guy, he was actually one of the architects. Remember Jonathan Gruber? He admitted, well, the lack of transparency is what allowed this to kind of pass.
This bill was written in a tortured way to make sure CBO did not score the mandate as taxes. If CBO scored the mandate as taxes, the bill dies. Okay, so it's written to do that. In terms of risk-rated subsidies, if you had a law which said healthy people are going to pay in, it made explicit that healthy people pay in and sick people get money, it would not have passed. Okay, just like lack of transparency is a huge political advantage. And basically, call it the stupidity of the American voter or whatever. But basically, that was really, really critical to getting the thing to pass. And, it's the second best argument.
Right, second best argument. Also, the argument that, well, not really an argument. This is the quiet part that we don't say out loud. But Gruber told everyone the subsidies, by the way, are a ticking time bomb. Don't say bomb.
The way the law works is the subsidies people pay as a percent of income. the percent of income they pay actually ramps up over time. Basically, it's complicated, but percent of income you pay is indexed. Essentially, the percent of income you pay grows with the gap between healthcare cost growth and income growth. So if healthcare costs grow at the rate of GDP, then people at the top always pay 9.5% of their income to get subsidies, people 3 to 4 times poverty. But if the rate of healthcare cost growth exceeds GDP growth, that percent of income you pay grows. So it could be, under current projections, by 10 or 15 years from now, people aren't paying 9.5% of their income, they're paying 17% of their income.
Nailed it.
Yep.
Okay, so that's sort of a bit of a time bomb hidden in this law.
A bit. Yeah, which brings us to now. Time bomb went off. Without the subsidies, premiums will double in 2026.
Oof.
And here's the thing. It was always meant to, because you have to understand, it was Bernie Sanders. These people were still around back then saying, Medicare for all, Medicare for all. We need to have universal health care, Medicare for all. You can go and watch some of my videos on that back in
It's a human right.
2009 through 2015 when this was still a fight. That was always the plan, was for this to be an intermediary step, or I guess I should say it's sort of this transition from what we had to socialized healthcare, to universal healthcare. It was designed to fail. Now, they will say that they wanted universal healthcare, then it got pared down to Obamacare. Well, sure, because no one was going to really fall on that sword. So they took what they could, said this is a ticking time bomb. As you just heard, one of the architects, which eventually will lead us to the point where it's going to get so expensive, Americans will say, give unto us a healthcare king. Yeah. They will demand it. And now you feel like you're held hostage. This is how the left operates. They knew it, and they were hoping that they would have the leverage where we get to this point. It happens to be taking place in 2026, where, hey, now you guys are dependent on it. Anyone want to pull these subsidies? You're going to see your costs double. Well, we've seen our costs double already. You'll see them double in the span of a year. We all knew this was going to happen. We all said that this was designed to be a failed step. What we got wrong was we thought a public option, since the government was going to subsidize it, was going to be so inexpensive that people were simply going to purchase the public option that would render private insurance, it would basically render them bankrupt, because how can you compete with a never-ending supply of taxpayer dollars? What we didn't expect was for it to be so shitty that so many people were still on insurance plans and they were able to double, triple costs without consequences. So we expected the cost to kind of go down. That's usually what happens with socialized healthcare. And then people go, well, you know what, at this point, I might as well go with the public option because it's cheaper. And then once all competition is eliminated, well, then that becomes insolvent. We didn't expect it to skyrocket the cost this badly, this quickly, and still put this much power in the hands of health insurance companies. Here's the solution. We need to put Americans first. We need some kind of policy proposals, since we've canceled the mandate, the tax, that incentivize, encourage businesses to not only go back to HSAs and catastrophic healthcare plans, to also be able to qualify for lower cost healthcare plans if you take control of your health, right? Preemptive control of your health, right? We need to encourage that, where you should be able to pay less than a chronic smoker who's obese. And we also need to incentivize doctors who are willing to have largely cash practices where they can serve clients without the bureaucracy of insurance companies. Yep. We need all of these things. We need local family doctors. And by the way, the wealthy have this. They call them concierge doctors, where you can get them on the phone. They do house calls like doctors used to. The wealthy are always unaffected by this. We need that to be an industry where everyone can have a local doctor where you can pay for your services, go and see, and it can be affordable where you negotiate those prices. And at the same time, Americans have catastrophic plans for things like major surgeries, accidents, and more incentives and breaks for HSAs. If we move toward that, we can fix this, and you can have more choice, and you can be empowered in charge of your own health.
Yeah.
Or we say, well, it's already so expensive, we're dependent on the subsidies, money, and we all end up with more of this. Universal health care. And if we do that, I'm going to tell you, you got about 10 years. And then you end up with the same kind of health care that they have in the UK or Canada, where they have 4 times the death rate.
Yep.
With cancers or terminal illnesses, death panels. Then the governments trot out policies of euthanasia because at that point, hey, it's cheaper anyway. Multiple days of waiting in emergency rooms. Doctors leaving. In Canada, you can go back and see in 2009, I did a hidden camera, sort of not investigation. I just went through a day in Canadian healthcare. The hospitals where I went to as a child, and people thought that no one was doing hidden camera stuff back then. They thought that I must have edited it or manipulated it, where people were telling me, oh, you need to get a doctor? Well, it's at least 3 years to get a family doctor, or go and see who's graduating from medical school. You might get one in a year and a half or 2 years.
It's insane.
Wow.
Because doctors just up and left Canada. So that's our choice. There are solutions. There were solutions back then. The entitlement mindset and voting exclusively in your own selfish interests and by the way, voting in your own self-interest is not putting America first, to be clear. Looking out for the American people doesn't mean looking out exclusively for your pocketbook at that exact moment in time. Could you save a little bit of money right now? Well, sure, because someone else is paying for it. I can say, yeah, you know what? Hey, I'm just voting in my own self-interest. If I'm voting for every time I go out to dinner, someone else pays the bill. Yeah, but what about the guy paying the bill?
Yeah.
It's really easy to get people to vote for things to be paid for by other taxpayers. Really hard to take a vote, okay, who wants to pay for it?
Yeah. And outside of like the catastrophic events that are not your fault, I will start caring about your health when you do.
Right.
Sorry, that's just how this system should work. There should be an incentive. You should have to pay a lot more, and it should be very hard to be a on purpose, completely unhealthy person. Again, lots of situations where it's not your fault at all. Stuff happens, cancer happens, things happen that are not your fault. I get that, and that's the exception. But people just don't care about their health. And then at the end of the day, they want to come crying and be like, the system needs to take care of me. You didn't take care of you. Why do we need to now step in and spend all of this money to take care of you in this way?
Right.
There's just no personal accountability. And I'm not mad at people. I'm just like, I wish people would take better care of themselves for themselves, not to protect me.
That's a big component. Yeah.
I just wish for them they would do that. They'd be better off.
And we talked about this comparison between health insurance and auto insurance. And in auto insurance, these companies now like Progressive and Geico, they have these snapshot devices and all these different methods to see how you're driving and how your behavior is going to increase or decrease. It never decreases.
No.
Increase your premium. Why can't we do that with medical insurance?
Right.
Yeah.
What if you're a terrible driver, if you're getting in 5 accidents a year,
right,
you deserve to be paying that $1,500 insurance premium per month.
And let's be clear too, the same people are saying, hey, healthcare is a human right. Also, fat is beautiful. Don't tell us what's healthy.
Right.
Also, of course, we should have taxpayer-funded sex changes and hormone blockers.
And now I'm paying for that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'm an ally.
Do you know what would lower healthcare costs? If America collectively lost billions of pounds?
Yes.
Billions of pounds. If America collectively lost billions of pounds and collectively took billions more steps per day, basic movement, that would have more of an effect on the actual cost, the actual burden of costs in the healthcare industry than simply another bill, than another tax. That's what you guys can do. But the problem is right now we're in a system where you're not really rewarded for it. Let's have a system that rewards that. And you know what? You could have a carve out for kids with progeria, whatever the hell it is, St. Jude's through no fault of their own, but that's not, just like SNAP EBT, that's not how the system is being used. Look at SNAP. People go, well, of course, I feel bad for people who lose their job and they can't feed their family. Of course you do. And you're thinking of food stamps, what used to be a thing. The number one purchased item on SNAP right now is Coca-Cola. Guess who's lobbying for more SNAP? Coca-Cola.
Of course.
Right. So it's not an exception. People go, well, there are always some people who game the system. No. The system is designed to be gamed. And SNAP, the average SNAP recipient, is gaming it, is gaming that system. It's the same thing where you can say, well, there might be, people would say there might be some exceptions, but there are people out there with these hereditary conditions who can't get health care. No, the rule is people who are irresponsible with their own health are very happy. They gleefully want to take advantage of the fact that the taxpayer has to foot the bill. If you think that the majority of people who've benefited from the Affordable Care Act are people who were born with, congenital heart conditions or whatever, no, it's not. It's not. It's people who take no interest in self-care, and I don't mean that in the new feminist way, self-care because I went to India to eat, pray, love. I mean walking. I mean lifting heavy things. I mean, doing push-aways with the fork. No, that's the rule, not the exception. And that's why you are paying what you are. And of course, that was considered classist. It was considered racist. And here we are. And I do hope that Donald Trump raises awareness of this. The one thing that does bother me about Donald Trump is, and then you look at the mortgages, 50-year mortgages, you look at the $2,000 check, he's beholden to this populism sometimes that's in diametric opposition to what is required, and that's education of the American people.
Yeah.
Because he's afraid of the backlash. For example, it's that third rail. You don't touch Social Security.
I know.
Someone's going to have to touch it at some point. Someone's going to have to touch it at some point because it's not working. It's going to be insolvent in our lifetimes unless someone changes it. So that's been the installment of Then. Toolman, I'm giving you some lead time. Of Then and Now. Oh, you're still here? And you're still watching this on YouTube? You've probably noticed something is missing by now. I'm not here. That's because the Live Daily Show is now streaming exclusively on Rumble weekdays at 11 a.m. Eastern. Tune in there, where nothing is censored.